Melena is the most beautiful she-wolf anyone has ever seen. She later came to despise her beauty, as it led to the loss of not only her parents but also her entire pack. She hides herself away, blaming herself for the death of everyone. One day, Melena is forced to leave her hiding spot due to hunger. She's discovered by Alpha Alexander and chased down along with his men for breaking into his house. Melena was unintentionally saved from falling into a pond of hungry alligators while escaping Alexander and his men by another Alpha Strider. Again, Melena finds herself in another terrible situation, being locked in a cell on Alpha Strider territory. Alpha Alexander, determined to punish Melena, visits her in her cell only to see her beautiful form, which she's been hiding for years, and now he wants her more than anything in the world. Alpha Strider hasn't seen her gorgeous form as yet. Will Alpha Strider hand over Melena to his #1 rival, Alpha Alexander, for punishment, or will he also try to claim her for himself after seeing her beautiful form? Additionally, will Melena ever feel safe? Chapter 1: The Miserable Wolf. Melena. It's been 10 years since I shifted into my second form, so I have forgotten what my human body used to look like. I was 12 when I was last within my human form. It was also the day I not only became an orphan but also a packless wolf. On that blood-curdling day, I swore to myself that I would never show my human form to anyone, and so I never shifted again, always remaining in my wolf form. Hot tears filled my eyes as I recalled the death of my parents and the end of my pack. Tormented by guilt for being the cause of their death, I wished I had never been born or had died at birth. Why did you give me this beautiful human form if it only causes destruction? I yelled at the sky, angrily at the moon goddess. Having such a rare, ethereal appearance, I couldn't walk around in my human form without men trying to claim me or fight for me. I hate myself, and I hate you too, moon goddess. I again screamed in anger. I screamed until my throat felt sore and my voice sounded hoarse. Lying within a cave within the forest, which has been my home for the past 10 years. I wished on the day I'd lost everyone that I had allowed the Alpha to have his way with me. If I had done so, my parents and the entire pack would still be alive. Why didn't I think of that before that terrible incident occurred? Stupid wolf. I bang my head against the hard walls of the dark cave. I feel a throbbing pain, but what I felt inside was much worse. There was no pain within this world that could measure up to it. I wish I were not alive and my parents and the entire pack were. I whined softly within the dirty cave. The scent of the cave smelled old and frosty, but it didn't compare to my horrid scent. I have not taken a bath throughout these years after the hellacious incident. There was no need to anyway. This cursed body doesn't need to be taken care of. Because of it, my pack went extinct. Whatever goes inside it, I don't care either. It doesn't deserve a proper meal, even though I will never receive a decent one. Now, I eat anything I can find, a roach or a dead bird lying before a tree. I don't know what killed it. As I have said, whatever goes inside this cursed body, I don't care. I was once a white wolf. Now I don't know what color I am. Maybe I'm gray or some kind of brown. I laughed insanely. What had happened 10 years ago? I remembered it as if it had just happened now. I was standing at the window watching my mom pick string beans for supper from our small farm while Dad cut the wood for the fire. I wasn't allowed to go outside to play with the other she-wolves or to make friends. I was such a beautiful she-wolf that males had a hard time controlling their desire to have me, and females were so jealous of my beauty that they'd do anything to start a fight with me, so my parents thought it was safer to be inside at all times. When I finally left the house, it was only to attend a pack meeting. It was mandatory to attend. From the window, I saw a young blonde male running towards our land with a letter in his hand. He gave it to my dad and looked towards the window as he was leaving to see me. Anyone who came to see my dad or was just passing by would try to get a glimpse of my beauty. The young blonde male smiled once he saw me, and I shyly hid behind the blue curtain. Having been kept inside nearly my entire life, I was a very shy wolf. When the young male had gone, I resumed watching Dad, now opening the letter. With a focused expression, squinted eyes and furrowed brow, Dad began to read the letter. Suddenly, his eyes widened, and fear took over his face as he read, which now worried me, knowing him as a wolf that rarely shows any sign of fear. Mom, also witnessing the look of fright on Dad's face, ran towards him with the basket of string beans, and I drew closer to the window, as if by doing so, I too could get a close view of what was inside the letter as well. Mom dropped the basket of the picked string beans, and they scattered all over the ground. She was reading through the letter as well, and as soon as she was through, her head turned toward the brown cottage, spotting me from the window. Her eyes, a lighter blue shade than mine, sparkled with fear as they met mine, scaring me, while Dad stood still there, as if the letter had magically transformed him into a statue. What was within that letter that scared him? I was now eager to know. Chapter 2: The Visitor. Melena. I paced back and forth along the hallway, eagerly waiting for my parents to come in. When I heard them outside at the front door, I ran to sit at the 4th step of the stairs, pretending to read a book I'd gotten from Dad on my 12th birthday, a month ago. I looked up from the book as if I'd been interrupted in my reading as Dad entered the house. Dad doesn't look at me as he does. He headed quickly into the kitchen with the wood he had chopped for supper, but Mom, following behind him, glanced at me, and I could see that she was crying. Mom, I stood up, stopping her before she could disappear into the kitchen like Dad. She stopped, but she didn't turn to look at me, and I noticed her hands holding the basket of string beans, shaking. Before I could ask her about the letter, she interrupted me. We have a visitor coming to join us for supper. Please dress in a red dress, she says swiftly before dashing into the kitchen as Dad. Visitor, I repeated as I watched her. Could the letter be about that certain visitor joining us for supper? I was now looking forward to supper and meeting that visitor whose letter had troubled both my parents. As I was about to return upstairs, Dad exited the kitchen. He sped past me, holding his head straight and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind him, and I strangely feel that he's been ignoring me ever since he received that letter. It was almost time to go downstairs for supper. I wasn't wearing the red dress my mom had told me to wear. Instead, I chose to wear my favorite color, blue. I was tired of being forced to wear red every time we went to a pack gathering, which has now caused me to hate the color red. I'm checking my reflection within the mirror before going downstairs when I hear a strange, low, and husky male voice say, "Wear another color dress." Frighteningly, I turned away from the mirror towards the voice, and I was startled to see it was Aaron Silver, the alpha of the moon pack I and my parents were a part of. He leaned against the open door of my bedroom. Alpha Aaron wore a white t-shirt, black pants, and black boots. He is 19 years old and looks as if he lives within the gym. He's known for being an extremely skillful fighter on the battlefield and had golden blonde hair and eyes as green as emeralds. He stood straight, leaning off the door as he'd noticed me, and flashed a friendly smile, showing his perfectly pearly white teeth. "Good afternoon, Alpha Silver," I greeted him, extremely surprised at his presence at my bedroom door, and then it occurred to me that he was the visitor my parents were expecting at supper. Only he could have such a great effect on anyone here. Everyone within the pack was terrified of him, for he wasn't one to mess around, and often he could be cruel. At a pack meeting, I once saw him pull out one of his men's tongues for lying to him. Still, I found it strange that he was at my home and in my bedroom. He never visits anyone's home, I heard. If anyone had any issues with the pack, they had to go to him instead. While staring at me, he strides into my room, and my heart begins to race. It raced faster when he stopped very close in front of me. "Red suits you better," he says, peering down into my eyes. My white hair that was so long it reached down to the floor, a strand fell out from the high spun, I've styled it, and into my face. As Alpha Aaron's about to move it out of my face, I drew back quickly before he could touch me. "If you're looking for the bathroom, it's next door," I said, very afraid of him, also believing it was the reason he was upstairs. He smiles at me, giving me a terrible feeling inside me that I wasn't safe alone in my bedroom with him. I began to quickly leave the room for where my parents were. As I was doing so, he held me by the hand, stopping me. I turned to look at him frightfully. "You're not going anywhere, pretty little wolf," he said with a grim face, which terrified me even more. "But I must go downstairs." I corrected myself. "My parents are waiting for us to have supper." I wanted him to let me go. "I didn't come for dinner, pretty little wolf, I came for you," he said in a very low voice, and as he does, I see his eyes trailing down from me, stopping between my legs. My eyes widened at his remark, and my stomach felt like it dropped, now knowing why my parents were so petrified when they read the letter. Chapter 3. What the letter was about. "Melena, you are the most beautiful she-wolf I've ever come across, Melena, and I feel if I don't mate with you now, I'll go crazy," he says, pulling me towards him. "But I'm not old enough for a mate." I began to cry. "Your age might not, but your body says you are." He drags me towards him instead, eager to have me close to him. He smirked as my breasts hit his chest, and he looked down at them while they kept on bouncing to a halt. Being not only a beautiful she-wolf, I, too, had the sexiest body. My body was extremely mature for my age. I had large, round breasts, wide hips, a tiny waist, and a huge butt. He slammed both of his hands on my butt and squeezed it. I screamed. Immediately, Mom rushed into my room. I tried to run to her as she did, but the alpha wrapped an arm around me, holding me tight to him. I felt something long and hard from his pants poking against my belly as he did, which made me want to move away from him even more. Mom worriedly looked at me, terrified, in his arms and at him. "We never agreed for you to mark our daughter," said Mom with a shaking body. The alpha let me go at once, and I ran over to Mom, hugging her from her side. Still in his place, the alpha looked at me clinging to my mom, and then he slowly began to turn his attention to my mom. Her already shivering body quivers even more as he now looks at her gravely. He started to walk straight towards us. My body kept shrinking as he did, and my mom held me tight, not wanting to let me go. "What did you say to your alpha?" he asked Mom as he stood closely before us. Mom tried to speak, but no word could escape from her mouth. "I thought so." He grabbed me from my mother, and I kept on screaming. "Let go of my daughter." Father now barged into my room, having a sharp axe. "Do you dare to challenge me?" the alpha asked, unhanding me instantly. I ran back to Mom, who now stood behind Dad. "You know anyone who tries to do so is only digging themselves a grave," the alpha said with an evil smile. "As an alpha, you're supposed to protect the pack, not harm them," said Dad with a shaking hand, holding out his axe before him, ready to protect me. I'm not going to harm her. I'm just going to give her a good time, he said jokingly. She's not your fated mate, nor is she ready for sex, Dad spoke angrily. Suddenly, Mom and I screamed out as the alpha angrily clawed at Dad's face. The alpha claw was so sharp that Dad's face sliced into three, plummeting to the floor. Again, I woke up sweating and breathing heavily. I started to cry like a pig being butchered. Almost every night I have been haunted by my past within my dreams. I clench my teeth within my mouth with such great anger that my gums start to bleed, remembering the monster who had killed my father. I hated him. I hated him with a passion. I got up from the dirty cave, which has been my home for 10 years, seeing that it was dawn. I was hungry and weak. I have been unable to find any more animals to eat for about 12 days now and have had to settle for insects and wild fruits. I know I had to leave where I was. If I didn't, I will surely die. Not if I care, though. I don't care about myself. I pushed myself up from the cave to stand. My 4 feet shook like a leaf. I needed something to eat quickly. I stumbled back to the hard ground as I was walking from the cave. I once more tried to get up, and I end up falling again. I was too weak to go anywhere. Suddenly, I felt the bones within my body breaking. It hurts badly. I squeal in pain. My body was now too weak to maintain my wolf form, and I was shifting back into my human form. Haven't transformed into my human form for 10 years now. It was painful, and I was bleeding as I changed. I screamed out as my bones kept cracking and straightening. Blood dripped from my mouth as I lay in the cave naked, no longer in my wolf form. Chapter 4, Hungry and Naked. Melena. I was furless and cold. Naked. I was no longer safe here. I was no longer a predator where I was but prey. I had to leave. My long hair, which was no longer white as snow because of dirt, surrounds me. I rolled over on my belly. I was unable to walk on 2 feet anymore. I was too much of a beast. I crawl out of the cave, scared of anyone seeing me. No longer within my wolf form, I was now a threat. I must find something to eat to strengthen my body so I can transform into my wolf form and conceal myself from predators, especially men, or once they see me, they too will want to claim me as theirs. I made my way from the cave, crawling through bushes and towards the lake. The ground towards the lake was muddy, and the water was undrinkable. I drank the water anyway. I was thirsty and had no choice but to drink it. The front part of my body was now covered in dark, brown mud. I was even dirtier. I crawl around the lake in search of food. Something small, like a baby bird that had fallen from its nest or a burrow with lots of baby rabbits. I was too weak to hunt for something big or too fast. I continue to crawl, searching for any food, but there is none. Not paying attention to where I was going, I lost my balance and began rolling swiftly down a hill. I kept on rolling as if I were heading down an endless hill. I had finally stopped rolling and found myself in a field with low, neatly cut grass. I looked up the hill where I was coming from and then looked back towards the neatly cut grass. There was a large white house sitting on a huge piece of land. A mansion. I was surprised that all along, this place was right here, close to me. I hid behind one of the large trees on the land, concealing myself from anyone. I then roll into some nearby bushes. I lifted my head, sniffing to see if anyone was there, but no one was there. I was happy. I could finally have something good to eat now, probably some fried chicken. I smiled. I watched cautiously to see if anyone was coming. Who knows how long the owner of the house has been gone for, and I could not bear any trouble to be caught. Not now. I planned to steal some food swiftly to strengthen my body back into its wolf form and run toward safety. I hid behind the bushes for about 5 minutes and left when it felt safe enough. I crawled from the bush like a large iguana. I was too weak to move quickly. My long hair pulls behind as I do. All I could think of as I moved to the mansion was to do what I had to do quickly, without being discovered, especially by men. Finally, I was close to the white mansion. I saw an open window at the bottom of the mansion. I pushed myself through the window like a snake and landed flat onto my belly, hard.